On today's episode of Locked On NHL, Mitch Marner, the Golden Knight.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. We are your team every day. We are your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we will take a look at the latest surrounding the big fish, the Marlin, the Marnerin, Mitch Marner. And I hate that. Mitch Marner and his most likely destinations. We'll see where the best fit lies, east or west. We'll also take a look at the Minnesota Wild and Marco Rossi standoff and see where things stand with the contract. Is it Rossi's camp? Is it the Wild? We'll set it all straight. And a shocker in the Selki Trophy voting. If you don't know who Aleksander Barkov is, we'll talk about the voting and why the award should probably just be named for him. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, we have a lot to discuss here as there are a few days before the Stanley Cup final gets underway between the Panthers and the Oilers. I'm personally waiting for a rematch next year so I can call it the three match. But we've got a full year before we get to that point. There is a big fish out there, and he is going to garner a ton of interest. Already has.
Yes.
But am I crazy to say that the Western Conference feels like the leader in the clubhouse for the services of Mitch Marner?
I don't think you're crazy. You just look at the gauntlet that the Western Conference has become as teams continue to load it up. It almost reminds me of like the the NBA for years and years, right? Where the West was like this insane, and then you just had LeBron James in the East for LeBron just waiting for whoever comes out the West. But anyway, it does feel like Marner going West would make a lot of sense, right? That the teams that I think make the most sense. You have Vegas, who does have some cap issues, and we'll probably touch on that here in a minute. You have LA, who we've talked about, right? Is like you have a new GM, the team that can never get past the first round. Feels like they just don't have that star, like that superstar. Mitch Marner would solve a lot of those problems. Well, maybe not the getting around out of the first round thing, but like that makes a lot of sense. You have Utah, who kind of feels like a dark horse team, like a team that we both liked entering last season and was kind of hung around the playoff picture most of the season. Like they have a ton of cap space and can kind of do whatever they want. Or you look at a team like Anaheim, right? A team that also has a ton of cap space, ready to take that next jump in their rebuild. It does make a lot of sense for one of these Western Conference teams because I feel like to get out of the West, you just you need star players. And as much as Mitch Marner, there's a lot of, his playoff performance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's still a star player, and you need these types of guys, right?
Yeah, you definitely do. I thought it was interesting that we saw a lot of that reaction after the Carolina Hurricanes were thoroughly dispatched by the Florida Panthers. Is like, well, it's a great Carolina team, but they don't have that like go-to player to be able to kind of lead you through. And it feels natural that some team that is lacking that is going to go above and beyond. But I look at a team like the Anaheim Ducks, a team that made a good jump this year. Like they were a great, let's not undersell it. They were a great They were a great defense and goaltending team this past season. They allowed they were in the bottom 5 in goals allowed in the entire Western Conference. They got great goaltending from Lucas Dostal. What was their biggest Achilles heel? They couldn't score to save their lives.
Can't score goals. Last time I checked, you got to score goals to win.
You do need at least a couple.
Yeah.
But when you go from where the Ducks have been, and now you've got Joel Quenneville leading the way, leading the squad, there's going to be a little pressure on that Ducks team to ascend, not just further that step forward, but to fully ascend, to climb out of the muck, to climb out of the bottom of the Western Conference, and to join the ranks of the playoff hopefuls in the West. And what is the best way for them to do that? It's to go get a big fish, and not just, well, hey, we spent a bunch of money on this guy. Like, go get somebody that is worth said money and can turn you into a team that all of a sudden goes from being a pest to being a problem.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, and they have, they have a lot of young players to kind of build around, right? You have Leo Carlson, who took another big step last year. Who knows whatever Trevor Zegras is going to turn into at this point. But like this team, like you said, right, they got to start doing something. And I think Mitch Marner would make a lot of sense. And, I think looking at kind of where the rest of this team is at, I think his age, he's near the top end of it, but I still don't feel like he's like too old for the rest, to not fit kind of with this group and where they're heading right now. It makes a lot of sense there for a team like Anaheim, who has been, basically kind of since 2018, pretty irrelevant when it comes to hockey, because right, they haven't made any playoff. Like it's been a very, very slow rebuild with them. And like you've been kind of waiting for them to make that next jump. And I think this would really change the direction of franchise if they did go out and get a guy like Mitch Marner. I am curious. Couple other teams. You mentioned the Carolina Hurricanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the answer to their problems of, right, go get Mitch Marner? We know Mitch Marner has some issues in the playoffs. Give him some of that tough Rod Brindamore love, who like his players love him, right? Players love him. Players love to play for him. Maybe that's the right coach for Marner to get everything out of him and turn him into a winner in the playoffs. Maybe that's the move, and he stays East.
I was going to say, so why, after talking so much about how this just feels like a move that the Ducks should make, why is it going to end up being the Vegas Golden Knights?
Ugh, it's gross. Because that's what Vegas does, man. They just go out and they just get the best guy, and they'll do whatever it takes. But this one will be tough, right? Because they have about $9.5 million in cap space, right? You assume Marner is going to be 12, probably 12 is a starting. And maybe they can say like no taxes, et cetera, like you can come, whatever. But they still have to, like, they've got not a lot of guys under contract. You're looking at 9 forwards under contract right now. They have 7 defensemen. They do have their goalies at least. They would probably have to make a move to move somebody out, and they are not afraid to trade people. I don't know. Does Mitch Marner solve Vegas's issues? Because like this team can still score and stuff. I don't know if he solves their issues, but it would make them a lot harder to play against.
And let's not overlook too. Kevin Weeks tweeted last night a photo of him standing in front of the Dallas Stars home arena, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So either Pete DeBoer is getting fired, or Dallas is in the midst of doing something extraordinary to try to shake things up after yet another loss. in the conference finals. They're trying to go the Bill Zito route and shake up the core after failing to get to the ultimate prize, which is, of course, the Stanley Cup final. I don't know. Maybe something happens, but maybe also nothing happens. It could be a red
Kevin
herring
Weeks
too.
random tweet that nothing happens. I'm shocked to hear that.
That
but
is blaspheming.
Yeah, I am curious to see, like, the Marner thing's gonna be really interesting because you're gonna have teams like the Sharks or the Blackhawks or the Ducks, like some of these teams that have been, near the bottom, that have just a ton of money. And for a guy like Marner, is it worth to maybe like head to a smaller market like, Anaheim or whomever, where you just want to deal with all the crap you had to deal with in Toronto, and like, let me just go play hockey for, like for 6 months, and then like when the playoffs get here, we can worry about it then. But I don't know, man. That like might not be the worst feeling in the world for him, who's grew up in Toronto, grew up a Leafs fan, and then has been kind of public enemy number one for the Leafs and their failures for the past few seasons.
Maybe he'll just go to Minnesota. You never know. Because obviously the Minnesota Wild have had some struggles with trying to get a potential extension locked in with Marco Rossi. We'll set the record straight as to where the negotiation sits and whether Bill Guerin even wants to trade a player of Marco Rossi's caliber. Caliber. We have the answers for you as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a delicious snack that is also nutritious? You can crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. It was raining while we were recording this episode, and as I was watching a new documentary on Netflix, had a full bag of the honey roasted no shell Wonderful Pistachios, and before you know it, I was so hooked I looked down and I had eaten half the bag, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't great. But honestly, you don't have to feel bad about eating a large portion of a single bag of Wonderful Pistachios. I call it my favorite guilt-free snack because not only are pistachios an incredible source of protein, one serving gives you 10% of your daily value. They also just taste great as well. So not only do you get a great tasting snack, but you also get a healthy one too. And who can beat that? So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Seth and JD hanging out with you here. And JD, before I kind of grab the microphone and
I was just going to take a nap during this segment. If you want, I can come back.
What is your outsider's perspective regarding the Marco Rossi situation? Is it foolish for the Minnesota Wild to be, at least from the outside, exploring trade proposals for a guy that put up 60 points this last year, has been a two-time 20-goal scorer, is under 25 years old? Is this a bad idea for the Minnesota Wild to be looking at other options here?
Yeah, it does. As an outsider, this does not make a lot of sense to me, right? As a player who I believe is fulfilled his kind of where he was drafted and what was expected of him. And yes, I know he's not the biggest dude. It's not like you didn't know this when you drafted him. Like, it's not like, oh crap, he shrunk in the dryer, guys. What are we gonna do here? Like, I don't know, man. It seems crazy to me for a team because all he's done is produce, right? Every time the Wild have asked him to do something, it seems like he has produced for them. And he seems really good. So as a team like the Wild, who need to continue to gather more good players, trading away one of your good players doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And yes, I get the contract thing, and I know the Wild have had some contract issues recently with, how they've some of their older guys that they paid for far too long and they had to kind of dump off and then dealt with the ramifications of that. But Rossi feels like a guy that I think if you pay him, you're not going to be upset with that contract and the way that contract's going to age. He feels like he should be a core piece of your future. Yeah, I don't get it, man. Enlighten me. Is it just because he's not a hashtag big boy?
Well, that's certainly what we thought. That is what we were led to believe was the reason, is that Rossi was billed as just not tall enough to crack it in the NHL. But I've always kind of chuckled at that, considering that Kirill Kaprizov himself is under 6 feet tall. Matt Zuccarello's under 6 feet tall.
It's a lot of good players under 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an end all be all to be above 6 feet. But in just kind of getting up to speed with some of the newest details in this. So the Minnesota Wild initially offered a 5x5 to the Rossi camp.
Cursed contract. Absolute cursed contract. You do not give out a 5. If it's 5 years at 5.1, fine. Do not give out the 5x5 cursed contract right there.
And to Rossi's credit, he knew that it was a curse. He said no.
Yes.
His camp countered with what I believe was a 3-year, slightly over $7 million per deal.
Okay.
Slightly over 7. I don't know the exact figure, but it was in that ballpark. And the Minnesota Wild said, no, thank you. But then the Minnesota Wild countered with another bridge deal that Rossi's camp still has not responded to. And so my question is, have they met in the middle on the years? Have they met at 4 and are now trying to just iron out the dollar figure? Because Bill Guerin was asked by Michael Russo of The Athletic, and he said, I'm not dying to trade the guy. Like, at the end of the day, if we feel like a trade makes our team better, we'll make it. But we're not out here actively trying to trade a player that we like in Marco Rossi. Like, there's just kind of this misconception that we don't like him as a player and that we're actively looking to move him. That's not the case. We're at an impasse right now with the contract, but there's still time for things to get ironed out. We're going to talk next week, and the hope is that we'll be able to find the common ground that we need to get it done. So that, to me, feels way more optimistic than the last couple of times this has happened with Bill Guerin. Like, let's just look at the last couple of examples here. Kevin Fiala, for one. Remember, there was this huge tug of war between, do you keep Kevin Fiala or do you keep a guy like Matt Dumba? And Bill Guerin went on local radio and said, Kevin had a great 3 months of the season, but the season is longer than that. And we need players that are going to be able to produce consistently over the course of the entire year. Not wrong. I think a little short-sighted, but obviously it ended up leading them
trade
to
worked
Brock's
out
favor. Yeah.
Pretty well.
Okay.
Yes.
The Cam Talbot one is amazing to me every time I think about it, because Talbot gets upset because he's going to be in a timeshare with Marc-Andre Fleury, and so he has his agent speak to the media about how unhappy he is, and Bill Guerin is like, "Oh, you think you're unhappy now? Wait until I keep you on the roster." And then the next day he was traded. So this feels a lot more optimistic regarding Marco Rossi than the previous situations do. But at the end of the day, how far apart are they is the big question. How far, we know it's about 2 million, but I feel like they probably have done some work to get it closer than that. How far, if it's within a million one way or the other, there are ways to meet. There are ways to build that bridge and get that deal done. It's just a matter of
how do you feel
work.
about a bridge deal, to be honest? Because I hate them. as like a young player like this is just going to cost you more money down the road. And then you're going to put yourself in the same situation you were, where you're paying for a guy for way too long into his 30s for way too much. Like, I hate bridge deals for young players like this, because it's just like I would rather pay the 7 or 8 years now and then pay the 4 or 5 years afterwards when it's easier.
Yeah.
Like, I hate bridge deals like this. I have a feeling this is going to backfire for the Wild, because then they're going to find themselves in the same situation where, again, and like I think Rossi's going to be a great player for a long time, but what Rossi's next contract, if he outperforms his contract 3 years from now, he's going to be 26, 27. You're going to be like, hey, where's my money? I've been a point per game player the past 3 seasons. Look at how the cap's gone up. You got to pay me 10, 11, $12 million 3 years from now.
Well,
anyway, that's my kids, is not to make this Sharks and Wild centric, but the Sharks are going to be in the same situation with William Eklund. 2 years in, very similar numbers to Marco Rossi. 45 points his first season, almost 60 points his second season. Not the 20-goal scorer, but still. And he's going to be due for an extension starting July 1st, entering the last year of his ELC. And I hate bridge deals because, again, if Eklund continues to perform the way we expect him to perform as this Sharks team gets better, you're going to have to start paying out the nose for Eklund, for Celebrini, for Smith. Like, yeah, just lock up long-term guy. Lock up young guys long-term. More often than not, I think it's going to work out for you.
I can't help but think as well, if Rossi was looking for a contract next year, this is a done deal. The fact that it also comes the same time that they're trying to get Kirill Kaprizov ironed out, I think that's a huge sticking point as to why this is taking so long.
Yeah, but it's like not like the Kaprizov contract's kicking in. Like they've already paid they're paying Kaprizov this year. It's not like that contract is, like the new contract's not kicking in. It's
it'll be about a $6 million bump, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing, but I don't know.
Yeah. I feel for Rossi. I think you, again, coming off your ELC, like the exact same situation you've done. Like, I think bridge deals for this, I think they just end up costing you more money in the long run. And maybe Rossi doesn't want to sign a bridge deal. I get that. But I would just back up the Brinks truck and be like, 7 years, $8 million or whatever it is. Boom. Let's just do that. Everyone's happy. So
go get yourself a Cam Fowler.
Go get yourself. Cam Fowler never complains.
Yeah, no, never has, never will.
Never will.
Speaking of never complains, another Selke Trophy goes to a likely candidate, but there are some surprise names on the finalists list. We'll talk about that as we finish today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure to hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Selki Trophy voting is in, and shocker, Aleksander
Neither
Barkov
one of us won.
Yeah, I tried.
More shocking.
I tried. I was not responsible for a goal against the entire year.
Same goose egg from us, both of us here.
I really thought I had it. Aleksander Barkov did, though. He received 96 first place votes, which was 67 clear of the next player, which was also Florida Panther and Sam Reinhart. And Barkov, I think, has Barkov transcended to one of the premier defensive centers in the entire league. Like, this is just a common occurrence for him to be either the winner or a finalist for the Selke Trophy. And it feels like at this point you're disappointed in if he doesn't win.
Yeah, I mean it's Patrice Bergeron all over again, right? Patrice Bergeron won it 6 times, and you wonder, does Barkov have a legitimate run to also win it 6 times here? Because I mean, you expect the Panthers to be good or relatively good over the next couple seasons, and Barkov is continuing to play at a very high level. Yeah, I think it's Barkov's trophy until somebody is like, right, it's somebody comes and takes it from him. But the defense, as you know, it's probably going to be pretty good as he continues to hold on to this. But I wasn't surprised. I think we all knew this was going to win. Before we look at some of the others, what do you think of the NHL's way of announcing it? Right, because they're not going to have the typical award show, which nobody wants to go to, nobody wants to watch. It's very boring. It's very stuffy. Like, the players don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there, right? What did you because we saw this, like, we see this a lot with, like, it actually reminded me a lot of how the NFL announces its Hall of Fame. You know, like when guys get their gold jackets, right? They usually have it like kind of set up, and they kind of trick the guys into it. You know, in this one, they had like the kids from the children's hospital that he comes sees, and like they come out, and right, they were in a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I really liked it. Like, the NHL, like what the marketing guys at the NHL have kind of stepped out of a box this year, and we've seen some good stuff from them, and I really liked it. And I'm excited to see how some of the other awards get announced here.
Not us applauding the NHL for getting with the times for an award ceremony or an award nomination. Couldn't be us.
I was there, like the one in Nashville, like the players are just miserable. Like, did not want to, nothing to do with it. Like, just no.
Yikes. Yeah, no,
it was fun. Erik Karlsson, though. Erik Karlsson after he won his Norris, super fun though. That was a really fun time. But anyway, players did not want to be there. So
yeah, and like I think teams kind of becoming self-aware of where the attention spans go is important, because, you know, I remember back in the day, they would do like you do the ESPYs, you do every single sport would have an award ceremony for their different, and you'd pull everybody together, and we're going to do all the NFL awards. We're going to do all the NHL awards, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's tuning into that anymore. Like, you just get the highlights on social media, if you even care enough to get them at all.
No.
So why not turn it into a fun social media bit? I liked it. I thought the video was great, and I just hope someday Pius Suter gets enough recognition to climb a little higher than tied for 37th.
I like Pius Suter. Pius Suter, puts whoever gave Pius Suter the 5th place vote. I salute you. Pius Suter, underrated defensive center. I like him. But whose name were you the most shocked to see either on the list or as high up the list, I guess? Because like it was, Reinhart was second, Cirelli third, like Nico Hischier, like fourth, Jack Eichel, like we know Jack Eichel's a great two-way defenseman. Draisaitl, Marner, Kopitar, Hagel, Lowry, like none of those guys I think really stick out too much, at least in my opinion. But like when you start to go down the list, like whose name were you like, huh?
All of the St. Louis guys, I think.
Just your Minnesota hate.
Robert Thomas for one. Then you got Dylan Holloway and Jordan Kyrou, who I guess I didn't realize was a good defensive forward. Like, the offense has always been there, but I don't know. I've seen some plays that might suggest maybe not.
Not your cup of tea when it comes to playing defense.
Yeah,
there.
Not defense optional, I think is probably the way to put it. But I was surprised a little bit to see Marcus Foligno get higher up on the list than Joel Eriksson-Ek. Joel Eriksson-Ek was hurt this year. But whoever gave Marcus Foligno a first place vote, I need a name. I want a name.
We could, yeah. We'll look it up. I'm sure the voting's out there. We can find it, so we'll find it.
It was not me.
It was not you.
It was not me.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, no Sharks made the
No, but one Islander did.
Hmm.
Bo Horvat. The
Well.
Islanders were like the worst defensive team, or one of the worst defensive teams in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. Not great. Not great. So
I was also surprised at the lack of votes for one Cam Fowler. Not a single
I don't
vote.
care that he's I don't care that he's a defenseman. He should still get it. Yeah. Don't care.
Forward
Give
in a
it to him.
pinch? Sure, why not?
Goalie, that man can do it all. Yeah.
He'll even be your e-bug for you.
You know what? I could see it. I could see it.
I couldn't see it. So it'll be interesting to see how the voting turns out for the rest of the awards as they're unveiled, which will be within the next month before the Stanley Cup final starts. But it's a fun kind of final push to the end, because once the Stanley Cup final is done, then you got a couple of weeks, and then it's draft, and it's July 1st after that. The start of the season is already here. So we will keep an eye on things throughout the rest of the offseason, of course, here on Locked On NHL. So make sure that you stay up to date with new episodes of Locked On NHL by liking and subscribing on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We got them for you every Monday through Friday. We are the Locked On NHL podcast. We are your team each and every day.